Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening to you, my friends. And I love to count. Good to be with you, peeps. Good to be with you. Kia ora whānau. Welcome back. Hey, I wanted to say, Chewy, you know how we told people on Monday or Tuesday night that I was going to do a new initiative this year, brand new podcast called Let's Talk Funny?
Oh, yes, yep.
I'm recording my first one tomorrow. And what I thought I'd do is a bit of a thank you to, even though it's a different product, but to our Big HN patrons, is I think I might upload the first episode to the Patreon, even though it won't be out until like the first week of Feb. So just as a little thank you.
Preview.
Yeah. I know we're not doing, I mean, it's different. Like it's not the same content, but I thought if you're a patron for this, maybe we'll delve into a little bit of other stuff as well. I'll give you some other bits and bobs along the way just to say thanks. So I just thought about this afternoon that maybe after I do my first recording, actually with friend of the show, Jeremy Elwood, he's my first comedian tomorrow, and yeah, I thought it's not gonna be up tomorrow because I'm gonna edit it all together properly. But maybe what I'll do is put it on the Patreon so BHN punters can enjoy it as well. They can get some sneak previews. Yeah, just a thought. How are you, man?
Yeah, good.
Other than scaring the shit out of me tonight.
I've got a comment on that now, don't I? I came in and said that I couldn't hear Pat.
Well, no, there's a backstory. There's a backstory. I was trying to set up I've got a new set for the new podcast, and I was trying to set it up today, and my studio in Auckland couldn't hear me. We're doing a test, and I was like, "Fuck, what's going on?" I couldn't figure it out. So everyone left. I even called Chewy up and got Chewy in because I wanted to make sure it wasn't on their end. It was my end, and it was. And so then I spent maybe between 1 and 2 hours trying to figure out what the problem was. Finally figured it out and got it working. And then actually did another test about 15 minutes ago with the Auckland studio to make sure it was working. All working, all fine. Know what's going on. Get onto the podcast. Get onto this tonight, 5-2. And Chewy goes, "I can't hear you." You know, it would have been funny if he had been joking. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Thinking 5 minutes to go, we're going to have to cancel the show. I have no audio. I logged off this. I logged back in, and then Chewy said,
"Oh, I haven't turned my headphones on.
Fucking hell.
Sorry." So I'm in the dog box now.
Circumstantially, no big deal, but just purely because I spent 2 hours or so today trying to fix up people not being able to hear me. It was Anyway, that's one strike in the dog box for sure. Hello, everybody. Hello, people, for joining us. Good to see you with. G'day, Simon. G'day, Sai. I think Sai's joining us for the first time at our new time because he says he's glad he's on time tonight. G'day, Emma. Kia ora whānau. Good to see you all. If you want to participate, use the chat. Most people watch us on YouTube. Use the chat. Send us some comments. Send us some thoughts. If you want to comment on the actual stories we're talking about, happy to take your thoughts and comments in there. Other than that, we're sort of just doing this new thing at 9. It feels a bit funny. It feels a bit early, but it's quite nice, actually. It's quite nice. I get to see my partner.
I think it's good.
I get to see my partner before she goes to bed. And last year I didn't. So it's nice. I like it a lot.
Good.
So,
well, we'll keep doing it then.
And actually had nothing but positive feedback from people saying they have enjoyed the 9 p.m. start time. So happy to get some thoughts around that and let us know what you think as we go on. The other thing to remind you of perhaps is that we're also in the interim. Actually, let's ask this question. We're Monday to Thursday live, but me and Chewy were talking the other night about maybe doing a best of on a Friday night. Now, it's not going to be a big best of. It's going to be a best of that week. But what do you think, people in the chat right now? If there was like a Friday 9 p.m. show that had 2 or 3 of our favorite stories of the week. I mean, they're only going to be 1 to 4 days old, But if you wanted that, then we could put together a best of, and that could upload every Friday. Other than the times we do long form interviews and perhaps news focused interviews, they will also go on Friday nights. So that means on Friday night, you'd either get sort of a best of the week, or you'd get, the Paula and Penfold Fire and Fury conversation we had last year. It'd be something like that, but that's what's going to be reserved for Friday. So tell me, or tell us if you think the idea of having a best of on a Friday night is worthwhile. And be honest, because I'm kind of thinking you've only just seen them, maybe it wouldn't be. You can actually just go back and watch the episode from yesterday. But putting it out there, the Daily Show, and they were used to be Monday to Thursday, so we're about the same as the Daily Show. They used to do their global edition, so every week there was like a 30-minute episode that played on CNN, and it's that kind of idea of maybe putting something out there if you want. But anyway. And thanks to all our patrons, especially Kuka, Nick, and Alex there, who are $50 patrons. And if you're interested in becoming part of the team, head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Right. What else, Chewie? Anything else we've got to get out there? Or should we just rip into it?
Rhododendron trees are the worst.
For what?
I hate them.
Okay. Just in general.
The terrible things.
Rhododendron trees, Stalin, Hitler, that kind of stuff. Is that what we're saying?
Oh, it's all on the same list.
Okay.
I've got an enormous uncontrolled rhododendron tree in my backyard, and I've spent the day grinding up bloody branches and trying to make some space, and I hate it.
It's very hard to say to sit here as an incredibly juvenile, potty-based humor individual when someone starts the sentence, I have an enormous, to not blurt out something and then giggle behind my hand. But I didn't. I was restrained.
Diddle.
See? Makes me laugh. Farts are always funny. All right, let's get into this. It's a bit of a people are pissy. People are a bit pissy tonight. And we're going to start with the National Party, who are a bit pissy. They're a bit pissy about all sorts of things in general, but they're a bit pissy about electric vehicles being sold. Let's have a look at the story from News Hub and what they had to say about the clean car discount, and the National Party trying to, I guess, sell the idea that there's problems with the clean car discount. It's almost a bit like, I think I put in the description of tonight's show, it's a bit like, after we win the Rugby World Cup, because Chewie, we always use sporting analogies, having like the soccer guys trying to tell us how bad a result that was and why it won't satisfy people, because the clean car discount has been exponentially successful. So let's have a look.
The clean car discount appears to be having a major influence on the vehicles we're buying. More than a quarter of all new cars bought last month were fully electric. That's a record for EVs.
But as William Tiriti reports,
that's huge,
National warns the government may need to raise its ute tax to fuel the popular discounts.
So did you get that to start with? So National's concern about this incredibly successful program is poor farmers. Now, I'm not slagging on the farmers, but that's what National's doing. Incredibly successful, a fantastic uptake to get people into EVs. National comes out and they looks at this incredibly successful plan and goes, but what about the farmers?
David Jensen absolutely loves his EV.
I called the car blue, obviously because of its lovely blue colour.
Up.
He purchased the all-electric beauty last year, thanks to the government's clean car discount contribution.
For me, it was $8,600, which when buying an EV, that does make a difference.
He's one of many Kiwis making the switch to a greener car. In December last year, just over 20% of all new vehicles were fully electric, a record. That same month, more than a quarter of new passenger cars, which doesn't include vans and utes, were fully electric.
So that's a spectacular number, 1 in 4. Right? That's a big number. Like, you imagine, I know electric is across all brands, but you imagine if they were like 1 in 4 cars were Volvos. That would be huge for a company. So to have it for like a fuel cell, that's a huge number, a huge response. I was going to say, imagine if 1 in 4 cars were Toyotas. They probably are. So I probably shouldn't say that. That's why I picked Volvo instead of Toyota for my example. We'll keep going.
Also a record. Overall in the new vehicle market, which is where we've seen the most growth in EVs, electric vehicle sales shot up from 6% in 2021 up to 15% last year.
We have definitely been behind the rest of the world in our rate of change, but now we are starting to catch up.
A win the government's claiming victory for.
Of
The
course.
proof is in the pudding.
The EV discount comes from tax.
Can I just say, that was the worst edit. The proof is in the pudding. 6 words. And he doesn't come back. You know how sometimes they give them a sentence and then they go off and they come back and they finish? He doesn't come back. Kieran McNulty, 6 words. The proof is in the pudding. Zoom. So I don't know the editor here, if they wanted to get rid of Labour and they wanted to make it look like this is not good, you know, but they got Kieran McNulty on. They probably talked to him for 10 minutes and they used 6 words. There's the mainstream media for you.
Taxing big gas-guzzling vehicles. And because the policy is so popular, National warns the government will either have to lower the discount or hike the ute tax.
Do you get that? That's the sleight of hand. Because the scheme is so popular, because it's so popular, National's saying, but what if the rebate value has to drop by a bit? Like, in other words, what if it's not going to be as good for the next people? And of course, they're saying, poor farmer. I know you want to jump into it, but this has got 20 seconds to go, so let's get to the end.
Yeah, go for it.
Are they going to increase the tax on hardworking farmers and tradies, which we think is unacceptable, or are they going to reduce the subsidies?
And it's obviously proved to be very successful and very popular. But we also said that it needed to be self-sufficient. And so the minister in charge of it, Michael Wood, is constantly looking at that.
So for
I'm actually quite annoyed with that comment at the end. That's almost giving some credibility to Simeon Brown. It's like, you could just say, you can tell Simeon Brown to fuck off. This is working really well and they don't like it. They can fuck off and we will run it until we can't run it anymore. That would be another response that I think a minister could give. Anyway, basically he signs off here. Chewy, your thoughts. You're big in the electric car world. You've delved into it. What do you think?
Oh yeah. While that was going on, I just thought I'd have a wee look around. Now, obviously, farmers and tradies need the utes, and there's no EV utes. Well, there is.
There is.
Gets the full $8,500 government rebate, $799.90 drive away. I thought I'd compare that with a couple of others. That same price will get you a Ford Ranger.
Yep.
Reasonably well spec'd Ford Ranger, and Toyota Hilux comes in underneath, $63,390. So, I mean, that was the whole thing, is that there wasn't any EV options for utes, and now there are. Because, of course, there are. They're an incredibly practical vehicle that heaps of people all around the world are going to need. Of course, there's ones coming. And the whole idea behind this rebate was to get people to consider an EV.
Yeah.
I went down to a car yard the other day just to have a wee look around, and fully 2/3 of it have a rebate of some sort. Secondhand car yard, they're all Toyota hybrids, Nissan hybrids. They're all hybrids, and then there's a huge amount of new EVs that are coming into that affordable range. I'm talking about 30, 40, 50,000 for a brand new vehicle. Now, one of the things that National have been hammering is this is only going to Tesla owners. The Teslas have been traditionally one of the top selling EVs in the country.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that have that push, right? But now everybody else is catching up, and they're undercutting Teslas as well. So yeah the whole argument of it's going to people buying $80,000 cars, $70,000 cars, that's going away. My hope is that I'll have an EV this year, and it won't be a Tesla. So yeah, I mean, it's an incentive, and it's an incentive that's working, and it's doing the task that it was supposed to do, is to get us off fuel.
Well, but that thing as well, right? Yeah, let's forget the car thing. When new technology comes in, if the government wants you to take it up, then they subsidize it. I mean, I think when I moved to Dunedin was right when Dunedin got Gigatown. Right, Dunedin was the first city in the country to get 1 gig internet into houses. Yeah, and what did the government do? And they may even still be doing it now. They're putting fiber for free into people's houses. You know, why don't we hear Simeon Brown or his counterpart for National come out going, oh, you know, at some stage, so many people are taking up fiber, it's going to be costing somewhere else, or they might have to start charging. Obviously, they're going to start charging to get fiber installed at some stage. Just like when the telephone came out, they would have put it in as quickly as they could for as many people as they could. And then at some stage, there becomes a cost to it. I just love that it's like, how do you spin a good news story when you're the opposition party trying to remind people that those guys suck and you shouldn't vote for them. It's like this is good.
At cars, man.
Yeah,
barking, literally
and
barking at cars.
And I just love the idea that National's complaint is that poor farmers. Someone said to me the other day, we were talking about the history of National. I'm going to butcher it, but basically when Labor started up, there was two political parties, one for a business party, one for the farmers. When Labor started up, those two parties combined and became National. So now they're the business party and the farmers party. And you know what I think, farmers, respectfully? What the fuck does National do for you? Like, honestly, other than rack you up because you want to be anti-co-governance, but actually policy-wise, what does fucking National do for you? it's a genuine question. Like, what policies in National drag all the farmers to vote for National other than sort of the culture war stuff? Fair enough, you can do that. But what actual policies help farmers that drive them all to, I mean, like, you can hear how much they pander to the farmers. Oh, the poor, hardworking farmers, you know, they talk about the poor, hardworking Uber drivers who are thankful for these rebates, or the poor, hardworking taxi drivers, or the poor, hardworking, you know, people in Auckland who are now using EVs rather than petrol cars to do, you know, 100 Ks a day. It's the poor, hardworking farmers.
You get it. Like, there's enormous benefits to EVs for farmers. You know, farmers have land, they can set up solar panels, they could have basically free fuel from the sun. And if you want to have a criticism of the government, there's one right there. We've got incentives for EVs. Where are our incentives for solar, for microgeneration and stuff like that? That would be a valid criticism if you wanted to sort of go with it.
I did that the other day. You know, you probably see it as well. You get on Facebook or whatever, such and such power company put solar panels on your roof. And so I phoned and checked about it. And basically you rent the solar power panels off them. They still own them. And it doesn't really save you any money, but it helps them build their grid. So I was just like, yeah, no thanks. I'll just wait. So I says, whoever in government is going to bring in road user charges for all vehicles to make up for the lost revenue from petrol tax. Emma, I'm guessing this is a bit kind of tongue-in-cheek, hardworking farmers. No one's saying farmers don't work hard, but, you know, lots of people work hard. So why aren't we worrying about all the hardworking people? Because for lots of hardworking people, EVs have been a fucking godsend.
Well, there's tons of farmers as well that are just like, oh, well, this is the way it is. And they put their head down and they just deal with it. They're adaptive people. We just hear the pandering and we just hear the whinges.
Yeah. Yep. Sai says, not surprised that National lying about EVs. Well, I don't know if they're lying. They're just bleating. They're bleating about a good news story. You know, that's the weird thing. If there is less demand for petrol, it might reduce fuel costs for trades and farmers. Yeah, I guess possibly. When I saw that, when Simeon Brown started talking about, you know, all these problems with this plan, like, for example, too many people are using it, so they might have to reduce the amount, or the poor farmers might have to pay more. It's like, well, first of all, might. Why don't we get some policy in there? What about some policy, National, as to what you are going to do, rather than might? And how do you point to this evil empire you've been telling us all about for the past 12 months with a story like this? Look at those bastards doing something that all the public want. Get rid of them. It's just, I find it kind of amusing more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. No, if they mess with my rebate, I'll be angry.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I don't think I'm up for an EV. I don't think so yet, but the BYD. I mean, you tell us something about EVs. You're into it. Like, I was talking to someone.
I've been doing a lot of research,
and my understanding, and correct me, you will correct me because I will be wrong, is that once solid state batteries come out, that's going to be sort of a game changer. And once they come out, and what I understand is the current battery technology will be not obsolete, but it'll be like, you know, driving a car that's nowhere near as efficient as the new cars. And there might be a second wave that comes through. And I'm thinking, if I can wait till that second wave, you know, living in the deep south, having something that goes 600 Ks would be, I think, more appropriate or better. I'd be more comfortable than something that went 400 Ks, or decent fast charges from where I live in Alex and Cromwell and, you know, Ashburton and Timaru, Christchurch, I'm sure is taken care of, Kaikoura. So you can actually go without having to wait for an hour at the pumps. You call them the pumps, the chargers, at a busy time.
I mean, I found it really interesting. Obviously, we were talking about a lot of people buying EVs. In the EV groups that I'm on in Facebook, there's a lot of people that have just had their first road trip experience.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so
summer holidays.
Yeah, people going from Christchurch up to Auckland and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And there's an enormous amount of variation in the EVs. You know, yes, you can pick up Teslas and BYDs and MGs that'll do 300-400 kilometers quite happily. And then you've got a lot of people that have bought secondhand Leafs, Japanese import Leafs, which don't go as far. And there's a huge amount of variation depending on where. But the overall thing is, people sort of went, I've been thinking about my charge like it's a tank of gas. And that's wrong. You don't, it's very rare that someone gets in their car and, like, you're not going to drive Dunedin to Christchurch nonstop.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you get to Timaru, you want to get out, stretch your legs, find a charger, grab a coffee, sit down, toilet break, 20 minutes, you're on the way again. You know, it's, for something that has 400 kilometers of range, I think what that means for most people is actually I have to charge this car once a week in my garage on a granny charger. And when we're talking about that developing, you know, the Leafs had an older style battery with no thermal management, and they degrade over time. Teslas, BYDs, MGs have a new chemistry in their battery, which means that they're going to last 10 years or more before degradation. Probably that next wave of technology is going to be a big range boost. A question of how energy dense the battery is. But that's the big question mark. When is that coming?
No, and this is the question for me. Like, I mean, obviously in the future, I think it's the UK says from 2030, you could Google this if you want to, from 2030, no new cars will be sold in the UK that aren't full electric. They've made the jump. But for me, the question's always been price and range. And that's it, really. I mean, that's the two big things. I mean, if it can dance with gull wing doors and stuff, that's all a bit of fun. But really, it's about price and range, price versus range. And then the second thing for me, or the third thing, price and range are the big ones. But then living in a place that gets snow and living in a place that's very close to going other places with snow, both axles having a motor, 4-wheel drive, price, range. And then number 3, but I'd still prefer it would be 4-wheel drive. And the problem at the moment with prices of electric vehicles is if you go to a double axle motor, so 4-wheel drive, then you are looking at that 70, 80 kind of thousand.
At the moment. You know, you are looking at performance models to have 4 motors at that point. I mean, I think it's either Sweden or Norway has an enormous uptake of EVs. And so a lot of companies are you know, because cold weather is also not great for EV range. But people seem to have jumped on that in a very cold country. I saw something that one company was trialing out. You know how you go down to the petrol station, you swap out an LPG gas cylinder for your barbecue, for a battery pack. And
the car drives over and it lifts up under it. I think I've seen that.
Literally unscrews the thing and puts it back in again. Obviously, that was a trial, but you see that same thing in electric long range trucks now as well,
right?
Because trucks can take the weight, right? So you just have this enormous battery pack on the back of it, pulls into the depot, they just take the battery pack off while they're changing the trailer and put a new one on, and away you go.
The problem with that, though, like as an idea, it's a bit like what I think the EU at the moment is going to make a law that all cell phones have to have the same charging port, because the problem with something as massive as that is if it wasn't universal, then you have to, in a small country like ours, you have to have an infrastructure for one brand of cars. Now, Tesla has built a fantastic infrastructure in America for Tesla, right? But if you're going to do something like that, it needs to work for all cars, or in a smaller country, it's never going to work for any, because you're not going to have 3% of the market being company X that does that to then build enough stations around the country to make that manageable as well. But it's interesting technology, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that we're starting to see now as well, ChargeNet's the biggest EV charge network in the country, and they're starting to put in hyperchargers now. Or if your car supports it, you're getting, I think, 60-70% of the battery in half an hour.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, you know, that's you walking around, let's take a break here, boom, on the way. It's building that network as those cars ramp up. And I think the amount of purchases of EV cars has really caught companies like ChargeNet out. And so now Z and BP, they're now putting in chargers into their petrol stations. Supermarkets are putting in chargers, warehouses. You know, it's going to be one of those things for a business that it's going to be a must-have.
Yeah.
You know, hotels and motels, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like I went up to Queenstown not too long ago and stayed at the, can't remember the name of the place, but it was pretty flash, and I did a broadcast from there and stuff, and we in the car park downstairs, every single car park there was a charger at every single car park under the hotel. There was a charger. Interesting. Hey, let's move on to the second story, because actually I think the biggest news story of the day is going to be our last one today, so we should probably give it a good amount of time. I mean, obviously you as well, Chewy, but I'm pretty passionate about radio in general and that sort of world. And so I was interested to see this headline today: the TVNZ RNZ merger, rushed law risks creating monolithic, monopolistic monster, says Jana Ranguni. Headline, interesting headline. You know, people are thinking this. Now, it is an interesting headline. It's a read. I didn't say interesting read, it's a read. But I'm really fascinated as to who Jana Ranguni is and why the Herald is giving column inches to a lobbyist for the commercial radio industry. Let's just go ahead and have a look at a few things that were said. Now, I mean, to their credit, they do acknowledge her position. So this is what Jana says: I read every publicly available document related to this merger, including around 800 select committee submissions. I'm yet to be convinced the merger is a great idea for anyone other than the consultants who have been paid up to $9,000 a week to work on the project. There's an interesting partway through her article where she says, commercial versus public media aspirations will drive very different outcomes. This is not the creation of New Zealand's ABC or BBC. That would cost the government hundreds of millions, but would be a better model. In 2023, right, this is her sort of pitch. In 2023, they should be funding more New Zealand content on the platform Kiwis are on, not increasing the funding going to government-owned platforms. So what she's saying is there's already New Zealand content on commercial radio. That's where the funding should go. Now, Jana Ranguni, as it says in this article, for the past 6 years, she's been the CEO of the RBA, Radio Broadcasters Association, and for 25 years before that, I've worked as an executive in commercial radio here in the UK. I've also been a listener and a fan of BBC, ABC, RNZ at different times. So she says she's the CEO of the Radio Broadcasters Association. The New Zealand Herald at the bottom of the article acknowledges that the Radio Broadcasters Association represents the interests of the commercial radio industry. So Jana Ranguni
should have been at the top.
Jana Ranguni has said that what the government should be doing is not funding government entities, but basically giving money to the commercial sector. This is the RBA. This is where she's a CEO. These are her clients. NZ Media Works, biggest two companies in the country, and basically any other group that has significant reach in radio. So she is a lobbyist for the commercial radio market. She's been given column inches in the New Zealand Herald to tell us and explain to us all why this merger is a bad idea. I just wonder if anyone else can see the conflict of interest here, to have someone saying, my clients should get the money, and if the government entities get it, that would be bad. I found it fascinating. I mean, I say again, the Herald does acknowledge who she is and what she does at the bottom of the article. I just wonder if this is new media in 2023 with lobbyists whose customers will benefit from the ideas they're putting out in the article, being allowed to write the articles and put those ideas in them. I find it fascinating.
There's also no acknowledgement of the fact that we wouldn't be talking about a merger, or the government wouldn't be considering a merger if the commercial sector was doing a good job. Yeah, and I don't think they are. Not for what the government thinks is important to this country.
I like the idea of the merger. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect setup or anything. I like the idea of, and Mrs. Ranguni, whichever is the correct attribution, says it won't be the BBC, won't be this. I'm like, well, it'll be New Zealand's version. And I actually think the amount of money that's costing to set up is going to be, it might take a long time, but clawed back with things like, newsrooms now that are providing news to two entities rather than separate newsrooms. And I just think that when you look and see a Jack Tame talking to Willie Jackson, you don't have to worry about the independence of the commentary coming from those groups. If you listen to a Kim Hill or a, gosh, what was her name? We talked about it lots last year. Ferguson. So is it Susie Ferguson?
Susie Ferguson, yeah.
Holding politicians' feet to the fire, without having to chase clickbait, without having to service their advertisers. I'm like, bring it on. Service the, and look, I'm someone who's doing some work recently and may do some again, I don't know, for the commercial radio world. But I'm like, I think like a well-functioning democracy should have a good public service entity. And I think like in Australia, like in the UK, as a PBC in America, do they have radio? I'm pretty sure they
PBS,
do.
I think
PBS
you're thinking of, yeah.
But they're combined. We're actually a unique country that they're not already combined, and I don't see any issue with combining them. I see an issue for people who want their clients to earn more money from government funding, having an issue with it, but I don't see an issue with the actual idea. I quite like the idea.
And even to that bloody monster headline, it might be monolithic, but it cannot be a monopoly because there's still the commercial sector. So there's no way that it's a monopoly. It's just something that I jumped on straight away. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're going to use that word even though it's wrong. But yeah, I think the potential of this merger is really, really good. But yeah, I guess the main reason that we're talking about it is this is something that we've spoken of before when we get someone into the Herald or onto the news and that sort of thing, and they're there to make a comment and we don't find the context of the person who's making the comment.
Well, I mean, like, again, in defense of the Herald, the context was there, but it's certainly within the article, the author just says, this is my job, but it doesn't actually explain what the job is, and the Herald byline at the very bottom does. But I guess as well, forget the subject matter, but if you have someone with a vested interest, let's say a lobby group for the commercial radio market, writing an article about why it's a bad idea to expand the public broadcasting arm, what you're doing is you're giving fodder to the I'm not saying there shouldn't be naysayers, but like if they want, let's say the opposition, the opposition can now cite this like it's gospel because it's been written in an article and it's been given weight and importance by being in the Herald or being in whatever, whatever thing. And there's it's tainted. It's tainted by the job the person does and who the person represents. But that'll never be talked about. The tainting will never be talked about. It's always good to talk about your taint. It'll never be talked about. It'll get used again as gospel. It'll get used again as, this is why it's bad. It won't be like this person who has a vested interest in this not succeeding says it's bad. It'll just be, this is bad. It'll leave out the nuance in the middle.
Yeah. No, and I guess I have a problem with disclaimers like that at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like there's so many articles that people don't even read to the bottom. They get about halfway through and go, I got the gist of this. I agree with it or I disagree with it. Yeah. It's like, put it under their name.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the byline.
Put it under the name. What do you do? Why do you have this opinion? And why should I listen to you?
And it's something we do here. And it's something I can't remember who it was, but during Talkback over summer, I had on a guest, and I think I shocked the producer a little bit because I said to the guest, who was it? I can't remember. It was a lobby group, and it was an association. And I said, look, don't take offense to this question. And of course, the producers go, huh? And I go, tell me about your tell me about your association. Are you volunteers? If you're not, who funds it? And he laughed. And he went, that's a great question. Like, we're all volunteers, and the only funding that comes into it is from our individual members, which are mostly the people who volunteer to do it. I'm like, cool. Now we know. And he went, yeah, people should know those things as well. So it's like, we'll ask people that all the time. We have on the show. We've asked people, where's your money come from? Because, You know, even Tuans, for example, who we had on, and I actually respect the guys from Tuans. I think they really do talk about technology well. They're funded by the technology companies. They're not funded by independent groups to keep the technology companies, like, hold them accountable. They're funded by the technology companies to further their own interests. So we just got to know that when you're having the conversation around it. That's all. It doesn't mean that we can't have those conversations where they can't be a part of it. We just got to know. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Hey, the other thing that so that was the RBA is getting a bit pissy. That was my pissy conversation that was going through the night. But right now, I don't know if this is someone getting pissy, but there's big news in the world of politics.
Deep pockets, and of course,
making it rain.
It's all going to one party.
Making it rain. Well, it's really interesting because it's not just going to one party; it's unprecedented amount going to one party. So National has raised an unprecedented $2.3 million in their war chest from rich list donors before the election year. I'll go through a few parts of this article about what's been reported, but this is the numbers, right? So these are donations over $30,000 declared in 2022. So this is how many donations, and the number on the side is 2,000. So that's 2,500. It says 2,308 donations over $30,000. Labor had 150. 2,308, 150. ACT had 1,151. The Greens had 122, and New Zealand First had 35. Although I believe the article says two of the Greens donations were from one was from James Shaw, one was from Marama Fox. It's a part of their constitution that they tithe the money back to the party. So there was some in there that are actually given from the parties leaders themselves. Right. I'm looking at this because we are talking about Paula Bennett as well. So Paula Bennett was the person who's gone around doing all this fundraising. She's been on the ticket, former deputy leader. She told the Herald that the National had some very generous donors in 2022. They wanted to see a change of government and support National. It is expensive to run a campaign and pay for staff and the right voter information. As such, all donations, big and small, are gratefully received. We can't win without their support. Now, the thing in this sentence, Chewy, I've got a few quotes to look at, but the thing that fascinated me most of all was the word here. The amount of money it costs for the right voter information. Now, does that mean that's their internal polling to get the right voter information? Or is she saying it takes us a long time and a lot of money to shape our message to convince the public what we're trying to say? I'm not sure which it is, but I find that sentence particularly interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I look, my mind first went to internal polling because, right, those sort of surveys are expensive and time intensive and that sort of thing. But yeah, as soon as you mention that, focus groups, let's get ourselves on message, or
just disseminating information to the public, getting the information to the public. It could just be about that. And that's talking about that costs money. That's just an interesting thing. I also think that, we're very critical of the US, like all of us, no matter where you sit politically, and the money they have in politics. But hello, money in politics. What is, if you've got a much bigger war chest, does it therefore mean you're more likely to win? I don't know. It's
well, I mean, I think just from an advertising, advertising campaigning point of view, you've got more money to spend. That's more radio ads. That's more TV ads. That's more billboards. You constant, you'll know this. You've worked in advertising, same as I have. The key to getting a message out there is repetition.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing that same message on targeted Facebook ads, on billboards, on radio and TV advertising, on brochures that are taken, pop in your letterbox, that sort of thing, that constant, unrelenting message. And if they have money, it's so much more money than what Labor's got coming in. I mean, the other thing that I find interesting, right, in the past, I mean, all parties are guilty of this, some more than others, but they all do it. There's their yardstick for when it's got to be reported and the donator has their name published and that sort of thing, it's all accountable. Lots of these parties, oh, no, don't give me 30 grand, give me 5 break it up into 5 donations, and they try to get around that. This seems to me like National don't really care about that anymore.
Well, okay, so that works like this, I think. If you've donated over $15,000, your name gets made public, but it's not as public as if you donate over 30,000. And what it is over 30,000 in a calendar year. So if you if you try to get away with 10 lots of 10,000, you'd be over 30,000. So they do keep it a bit. They do keep it a bit like that. But speaking of that, let's have a look at where some of the money came from, right? New Zealand, the biggest single donor to New Zealand was New Zealand's wealthiest man, Graham Hart, who donated $250,000 to National and $100,000 to ACT. Fellow rich lister Murray Bolton also chipped $250,000 to the National Party, as did Zuru Toys co-founder Nick Mowbray. So there's there's $1 million between 4 people. National's 2022 tally means it raised more money in 1 year from large donors than Labour has raised since 2013, a year in which it raised over $400,000 in a large bequest. Labour's General Secretary Rob Selman said, while National received a large number of donations from the wealthiest New Zealanders, Labour was proud to be supported by many thousands of donors from all walks of life, giving whatever they could afford. He accused National of a narrow focus on the wealthiest New Zealanders, both in its policies and its donors, which is a fascinating situation. And it does make me think about Obama. Obama raised a huge amount of money, and they were quite proud that it was an average of like $18 donation, whereas the Republicans didn't raise as much, but it was, all in massive amounts. It also goes to this conversation that we have gone on and on and on and on and on about, that Labour is shithouse at messaging. You'll remember, Chewy, that we talked about this last year. There was a survey that came out, and it talked about CEOs are all on National side, and they don't like the current government. And I'm like, good. What you do, Labour, what you do, Labour, is you go back to your fucking roots and you go, okay, National, you can have the CEOs. We'll have the factory floor workers.
Yeah.
Right? You have the CEOs, you have the elites, you have the haves, you have the top 1%. We'll take the 99. And we will work hard for the factory worker while you guys are working hard for the CEO. This is a similar sort of opportunity. And I'm frustrated that they don't know how to message it. They did it a little bit here talking about the small donations, but having all these wealthy people donate to you can be spun and turned into, what do you think those wealthy people want for their $1 million? Versus, what do you think that beneficiary who could give $5 wants for their $5? It's like they don't know what they're doing when it comes to messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the flip side of that coin, National going, well, they're talking about wealth tax, so maybe you should fund us to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
ACT, God, what did they tweet out recently that, just highlighting, so ACT put out a tweet, the top 9% of income earners pay 42% of all income tax, and the bottom 48% pay 8%.
Yeah.
We want a flatter tax system that treats income earners more equally.
So let's spell this out, yeah? Right, let's spell this out, right? And I'm going to use a really simple example. And I know that everyone out there is smart and wise, and, I'm preaching to the choir a little bit. The reason that those numbers are so bullshit is this. So let's say it's just me and Chewy, right? Let's say I make $1 million a year and Chewy makes $10,000 a year, right? Let's say that I pay let's say I pay $200,000 in tax out of my $1 million. So I'm left with $800,000. Let's say Chewy pays $2,000 out of his 10. So he's left with $8,000. That means I've paid 99% of the tax, but who the fuck do you think is worse off?
Yeah.
This idea that they pay the most, look, to be honest, in some stage we pay the most. This idea that they just pay the most and that's it is such an I just want to use the worst words in the world, but is the stupidest argument, and it's so easy to push back on, and no one ever fucking does.
Yep.
If you have and you pay, but you're left with plenty to live off, you are far better off than someone who has not and pays a little. And it frustrates me so much that it's so easy. So extrapolate those numbers that I just gave you, the me and Chewy number, to 10,000 wealthy people and 1 million people on the bones of their ass, and you get a similar result. Yes, the 10,000 wealthy people pay a lot more, but the 1 million people on the bones of their ass are far worse off. So go fuck yourself with that bullshit. Sorry, go Chewy.
Yeah, it's the thing that frustrates me about this. We were talking about the 4 wealthy New Zealanders. These are people that have had the benefit of living in this country. They've had the benefit of our education system. They had the benefit of everything that is here, and they've done very well. And yet they don't want to benefit the country at all. They might make some donations, they might fund some charities and that sort of thing. There's tax write-offs for all of that. I just want people to go like, you are a multi-millionaire, you are fine, you can carry more weight. It's just the red flag's coming out in me again. It's just why would you begrudge that? Why would you not want hospitals funded, schools funded? Why wouldn't you want the roads to be good? All of these things that benefit the entirety of the country, and even just to be able to sit back and go, you know what, I am doing my part, rather than giving a shit ton of money to a political party that says, we are going to look after your interests and your interests alone. We're going to make sure that tax rate doesn't move. We're going to make sure that all the benefits that you want, you're going to have more of them. Fuck the beneficiaries. They're all lazy. What was that word that Lux used? Bottom feeders.
Right. Like I said, I don't want to bang on about this too much because, people will start seeing my right wing side come out if I keep banging Labour. We said it last night. We don't carry water for fucking anybody. If they deserve a rocket, we'll give them a rocket. Don't care who it is. And Labour needs a fucking rocket when it comes to their messaging and their policy, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. Western countries, the citizens of Western countries are left-leaning. But the left-leaning participants are also not as engaged, and that's the only reason that keeps it 50-50. And the only one that can get them engaged is the left-wing government or party, and they're terrible at it. In fact, they're terrible.
The messaging hasn't changed. Like I can write Labour's campaign right now. It's like, you've got these guys with their thumb on the scale.
Just to get my stress ball going.
They are putting, the conversation of one person, one vote. Oh, not in my ears. Yeah. One person, one vote. Well, your middle income vote is not worth as much as this guy that's just given us $1.3 million. I'm sorry, his thumb's on the scale.
Of course,
not fair.
Because then what happens is the person who's given $1.3 million, or in this case, 4 people have given $250,000, come next election, obviously they're at the top of the list for calling. And when you're at the top of the list for calling, you sit there and go, okay, so I gave you $250,000 last time. How did that benefit me? Okay, so Ms. Bennett, who's now sitting in my office trying to get more money out of me, we'll get onto that in a minute. What can National do for me in 2020? I guess it's going to be 2026, next election, and how does that benefit me? And that's when you start to see, a pay-to-play scenario coming out, and it's disgusting.
That's my fear. Like we've seen, the US experience is probably the most egregious one of just money in politics, right?
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer of, like, if you want to fundraise for your party, then sign people up as members, charge membership. That sort of thing. But when it comes to a campaign year, there's got to be a better way to do campaign finances, right? should just come out of the Electoral Commission. Here's your money to campaign. It's based on how many seats you've got now. I don't know if that's a better way to do it, but I certainly don't feel comfortable in very wealthy people or big organizations or foreign donors especially contributing to a political party in an election year. Gives me the creeps.
Yeah, look, there's one more part of this as well, and I think we should actually look at it. Paula Bennett, former deputy leader. Was she deputy prime minister?
No relation.
Oh, yeah,
just
Mikey.
Have to put that out there.
Mikey B.
No relation.
I just wanted to, there's one thing I wanted to put out there. Last year, she was running around the country, maybe even the world, when you're talking about Graham Hart, seeking funding for National. At the same time, she was getting a big old fat paycheck from the government via TVNZ for hosting Give Us a Clue. Now, on one level, I kind of go, it's a job. She's allowed to do a job. She's allowed to pick what she wants to pick. But I just thought, I've tried to do some research to see if this is coming back this year. And if this is coming back this year, I don't know. I always thought it was a strange, like I had, is it Tom? I forget the guy's name. It was Tom, isn't it? The co-host there. I had him on my podcast, and I played a clip where she was talking about, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this fair. And I just stopped it and I asked him, I said, when did she fucking decide to be fair? When did this start happening with Paula Bennett? When did because she wasn't fair all the way through her political career. Why does this come up? But it feels kind of weird. And I'm not saying Paula Bennett per se, but for 12 months, that National's been rallying against government spending, rallying against the merger, rallying against any funding that the government is spending. She's taking some of that funding via working for TVNZ, whilst running around the world, raising millions of dollars for the National Party to continue their conversation as to things like against the merger and funding for things like TVNZ and other entities. I'm kind of caught between she's allowed to do a job and just the hypocrisy of it all. I'm somewhere in that Venn diagram. I'm not sure exactly where, but it's very strange.
I'm not even going to dress it up. I have an intense dislike for Paula Bennett, and I think this is like her being on TVNZ and that sort of thing is just more about rehabilitating her image than anything else. She did some horrific things for beneficiaries, and it should never be forgotten that she pulled up the ladder behind her of all the advantages that the state gave her. She made sure that other people that were in a similar position to her would never be able to capitalize on them as she did. So I think she's a vile person, personally. But the fact that she is, she's not in politics anymore, but running around with a bucket, fundraising for National and being on the telly is
But I mean, maybe I'm being a bit sensitive, and I can cop that if it's the case. It's not just being on the telly; it's being on the telly whilst being funded by the government to be on the telly. Not the government, not the Labour Party, because TVNZ runs under both parties, but under receiving an income from the entity run by the government that you're fundraising to rally against. It feels strange. I'm not sure whether I don't know if it's, I can't go so far as to say unethical because I'm still putting it through my head, but it just feels off.
Oh no, it feels super yucky. But then of course the other thing is the government swoops in and goes, right, we don't like her, she can't be on the telly. That's another, I'd feel equally yucky about that. Look, I just don't like Paula Bennett. I don't have to dress it up. I don't have to rationalize it or anything like that. I just don't like her.
But a bunch of people echoing things you've been saying as well here in the comments. We won't go through all of them, but thank you for your comments. Yeah, I mean, I just think that the idea of money in politics, I can't see how it ever serves a positive democratic outcome, because the more money I always think back to, and I was against the Greens, the Brethren Church spending all that money on, and I mean, I'm not saying National is going to do anything fake. Do you like my stress ball?
I don't like the sound of it in my headphones, Pat. I dislike that intensely.
because we do often talk about having kind of clean financial, political, elections, but actively over $2 million raised last year. Now there is one other comment. I think did I read the comment about how much is normally? I didn't, did I? I'll do this now. How much is normally raised? So this just gives an idea as to how much of an anomaly it was. Last year bucked the trend of non-election years, typical being quiet for political donations, which tend to peak the months before the polls open. In 2019, the year before the previous election, National raised just $50,000 from large donations. Collectively, parties raised $987,000 from large donations that year, but more than a third of this was a bequest to the Green Party. In 2016, which was the year before 2017, National raised just $180,000. So the two previous elections, the year before the election, they raised $50,000 and $180,000, and last year they raised $2.3 million. So that just goes to show what the anomaly of a year it is.
That's kind of what I was sort of getting at when I said, hey, in the past they've tried to conceal these large donations, divvied them up, spread them out so they didn't show up.
Well, I mean, it could be that. Hang on. It could be that. It could be that, or it could be that they didn't happen in those years, because that's what the article's saying. The article's saying it didn't happen. This has never happened before.
Yeah,
that's the premise of the argument of the article, at least. But sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, they're trying. They're either trying something new and it's really working, or they just don't care about concealing these large donations in the same way that they have in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an enormous cash pile that they have, and they are going to spend it on this upcoming election, and we need to just keep in mind how much that is going to like put these messages in people's heads.
I guess that if money's going to be in politics, I guess if people, I mean, I think it's a horrible conversation, but if it's going to happen, I guess I just hope that it's not going to be so disproportional that it's going to cause more mis and disinformation to go out there. I mean, if it's actual information and it's fair, then I guess as much as it goes out, that doesn't matter. But if it's like, if it's like your classic Lux and all of last year talking about people being absent from school and not acknowledging that it was in the first term, and not acknowledging that was the year, that was still a time where, if you caught COVID, your whole household had to isolate, not just you. But that means the fact he put out, the information he put out was correct, but there was a massive addendum that should have gone with it to explain it. So I don't know, but I guess that's the job of, particularly hairy news agencies, to make sure we point out and tell people what's going on.
I mean, I can only imagine what it's going to be like based on their behavior on social media and the things that they say on social media. Simeon Brown talking about potholes of the week, and I think he really struggles to find one that's actually on a highway rather than a council surface road.
I've seen some headlines about that today, about 27 times the calls going to Waka Kotahi than there's ever been before. And what I want to know is, are there 27 times the potholes, or has this just become the latest ram rate issue that everyone's talking about, so they're making more calls?
I mean, I've seen a few things, and I think all of this is true, and it's all just come to a head, and they've decided to pick on this particular thing. When National were last in, they slash roading budgets, to deliver tax cuts or whatever. They also allowed heavier trucks, the H-class freight trucks on the road. A car does almost no damage to a road. It's just not heavy enough. It's an order of magnitude more wear and tear on a road when a freight truck is on it, and National made them heavier. And then more recently, we've had some of the wettest, like I think it's the hottest and wettest year we've ever had. And wet weather, creates havoc on the roads. You're not able to get out and repair them as much. The water damages the roads as well. It's all come to a head. Now, some of this goes back to national. Some of it is stuff that you can't solve. The other thing comes back to my favorite thing of like, why are we doing freight by trucks? Put them on the bloody trains.
Yeah.
But yeah, and some of it is valid criticism. Some of it can't be solved, but it is catchy because every time someone hits a pothole or sees a shitty road, they think, Simeon Brown was going on about this. Bloody government.
That bloody woman. Okay, we're not going to look into this tonight because we've just really started to delve into it, and we're kind of coming to the end of the show anyway. But just a heads up for people, maybe for tomorrow night, there is some interesting going-ons in the National Party at the moment. I just so you know, I know we say we don't carry water for everyone. There's been 3 stories about National tonight. That's because they're the 3 big news headlines of the day. Like, it just happens to be. Tomorrow might be 3 about Labour. It's just you've got us on a bit of a strange night. News Hub did a story. I don't think I'll play the story, but it's or maybe I should. Should I play the story?
Yeah.
Should I play? Okay, I'll play the story because the
give
story's
us a
only
wee
2
taste.
Yeah, but the story's only 2 minutes. But actually, the article goes into a lot more detail as to the accusations and what's been going on. So it's quite a lot more detail. All right, I'll give you the story, and then we'll probably follow this up tomorrow night.
Well, hold on to your hoardings.
Hold on to your hoardings.
Election year.
Oh, go on. Just pause for me then, Mike. Silver Fox, you. Look at him, Silver Fox. Got his eyes shut. He's looking for it. Come on.
I can't look at him and not get the image of him. Like, he's ripped.
Well, hold on to your hoardings. The political year, election year.
No, we're not going to do it. See, I told you, this is a sign.
Well, this is dirty politics.
Dirty politics.
That's what it is.
I'm not going to sit around for this.
I like, in broad strokes, Cameron Slater has made some vague posts on social media that there's more bullying in the National Party and it's driven a candidate out of an election seat. And it really does feel like this is something that is going to unfurl over coming weeks.
So let's read this. I'll read a couple of paragraphs instead. This is more information in these couple of paragraphs than is in that in News Hub story, because News Hub was very, very much like there's these goings on, and we asked Luxon about it, and Luxon said, I've got nothing to do with candidacy. Although I remember Mr. Uffendale, I think after that they were kind of like, you should have more to do with candidacy. And he was like, yeah, but now it's like, I have nothing to do with it. Anyway, allegations of dirty politics have emerged from a National Party candidate selection, with one would-be MP claiming concocted fabrications and half-truths surround his bid for Parliament. The candidate, David Elliott from Hawke's Bay, who we've approached for comment, but he probably won't, pulled out of what he has called a manipulated contest designed to tilt the field in favour of former TVNZ reporter Catherine Webb. The vote to select National candidate for the Tuki Tuki is to be held this month. With Elliott's withdrawal, Wed is the only remaining candidate. The regional fracas has spilled out of Hawke's Bay, with upset members writing to party president Sylvia Wood asking that she intervene. Others have raised the issue with party leader Christopher Luxon. There's also been accusation of meddling levelled at former whale oil blogger Cameron Slater and Hawke's Bay political operative, whatever the fuck that means, it sounds like a spy, Simon Lusk, who lives in the Tuki Tuki electorate. So Simon Lusk is associated with Cameron Slater with whale oil, and that's why whale oil on Twitter for the last few days has been saying, some ructions. So something's going on. We don't know too much about it yet, but I guess we're earmarking it tonight because probably in the next 24 hours more will come out, and we could well get into it tomorrow night. Shall I get Cam on? Do you want to talk to Cam tomorrow night?
Oh, Jesus. If you can land him, sure.
Oh, of course. He'd come on a heartbeat. Like, just so you know, Cam would come on a heartbeat, Joey.
Oh, I'd have to be so careful. So careful.
Anyway.
Look, I always, whenever you see that reference to dirty politics, I think it almost slides over people now. If you haven't, I would recommend reading the Dirty Politics book, especially going into an election year, because the behavior that's in that book still happens. Yeah. The characters involved in it are still involved.
If you're not a reader, there's actually a documentary that's been made as well. One of my prized possessions, I have a copy of the documentary Dirty Politics on DVD, signed by his name, the audio speech, Don Brash. It's signed by Don Brash. So I have a dirty politics DVD. Well, that's the reason. I also had I had this thing where I used to collect strange things. I was interviewing Sue Bradford, who famously put through the anti-smacking bill, and I got her to sign a wooden spoon. So I've got a wooden spoon signed by Sue Bradford and a dirty politics DVD signed by old what's his name, Mr. Audio, Don Brash. Anyway, so yeah, I think you're right though, Chewy. If there's a documentary and there's a book that's out, maybe we should get Nikki on. Hey, maybe I'll contact Nikki Hagar tomorrow. See if he'll come on tomorrow night to talk about it. That could be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be a great one.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Good to see you all. Man,
no worries.
I kind of I just thought of something. My brain works too fast in my mouth sometimes, Stu. I was about to say something horrible like, you've got fans out there and it's not fair. And then I thought I was about to say something about Nala. Then I went in my head, is Chewy the new Nala? And that feels a bit disrespectful. So I can't.
I'm a terrible retriever.
I can't
I'll
say
tell you that much.
I can't say that. And thank you, Mike. Good listening. Good sharing. Yeah. People have asked, I've had a message from people about Nala. I got to tell you what's happened is I've reset up my studio for the new podcast and I've moved my desk forward. And so therefore my doggy cam up there can't now sit down with the seat. So I might have to get a specialized one. So she's not with me even tonight. So it doesn't really matter. But so Nala's on holiday. Oh, Lars says Hager and Slater. Ooh. I don't know.
Yeah, don't tell either of them that they're on the show with each other and then we'll just tag out.
Maybe that's the Friday night episode this week. There you go. There's a Friday night episode for you. So reminding you, thanks for joining us tonight, that we are 9 p.m. I'm going to say from now on. I mean, we've changed it around a bit when we felt like changing it. It's 9 p.m. from now on. We're Monday to Thursday. Friday nights are going to be basically long form interviews when we have them. So like there's nothing for this week unless something pops up tomorrow night or tomorrow. So basically this week will be Monday to Thursday. Next week will be Monday to Thursday. If we get like a Paula Penfold Fire and Fury type conversation or something like that, like a long form conversation, we'll put them on Friday nights. We'll probably put an edited version on Friday nights and we'll put the full version as we've promised from last year behind the paywall. Oh, look, people are saying Nikki Hagar. Okay. Well, look, I'll put a request in once we get off this fantastic bit of broadcasting we brought you tonight. Thanks very much. And I'll see. He may be able to, he may not be able to. I guess we will see what we see. All right, the Chewmeister General, is there anything? You're not wearing your swag hat tonight. Has something happened? Did you get stopped out for it? Oh, there you go.
Still here.
What was it? Single white and ginger? Is that what it was?
No, so white and ginger. I'm not
single white. Sexy white and ginger?
No, that's also wrong.
Salacious whore and ginger? Yeah, that works. Oh, are you still there? Oh, no, I thought you'd frozen. We haven't had a freeze out from you.
Oh, that'd be good. I should just do that to you.
You haven't had any tangents not as well. You want to leave us on a tangent?
I can't hear you.
You want to finish on a tangent? Audio. Got anything for a tangent?
No. Let's just wrap it up in a professional manner.
Oh, fuck off. That means tomorrow night there'll be 6 tangents because it's 3 a night. So
yeah, I'm stacking them up.
All right, team. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition. Remember, there's many ways that you can support us. There is a literal financial way you can support us if you want to get involved, and that's by going to the Patreon and becoming part of our Patreon. Oh, I had it on, didn't I? I actually had it up. It was the right one playing on the bottom. And as I said, if you missed from the start of the show, I'm starting a new podcast tomorrow. Shall I do this? This will be a bit. Sorry. Keep yourself busy.
Oh, he's gone.
Me. Keep yourself busy. I haven't gone anywhere.
Peekaboo.
Hang on. Oh, fuck. Turn on, camera. Oh, there it is. Hang on. You ready? Come on, camera. Come on, cam. Okay. Here we go. Sorry. I thought I'd just be able to do that. I'll just do this for a sec. You watch. So if you're interested in helping us make this, then one of the benefits we'll do with it is certainly at the start of my new podcast, I will put it up there early on the Patreon. You ready? Here we go. Hang on. You ready? There we go.
There's 2 of you.
So welcome to the podcast. So there's the new podcast.
Hello.
I nearly remembered. I just about turned off the other one. I turned off the other one so I could do it on that, but then we'd lose audio, which is what I found out today. So I won't. So if you want to, so that's one way you can support us, is to become a patron. We'd love to have you on board. I think that the cheapest you can be a patron for is about $200. No, it's a couple of bucks. And you can also just be our advocates, right? So tell people about us, share people about us. I had to do something disgusting today for you. I had to pay Elon Musk.
Oh.
Right. And the reason I paid Elon Musk some money was purely because I wanted more access to longer videos. So I put up Simon Wilson on Twitter today, and it was 2.5 minutes. And if you don't pay Elon Musk $10 a month or whatever it is, you can only put up 100 seconds of video or something. So yes, he's got money out of me, unfortunately, but that goes with the territory. And yeah, but follow us on Twitter. But when we put things up, share them around. If you like what you've heard, share them around. I think there might be a rant or two from tonight being clipped out tomorrow, but we'll see what happens. All right. Okay, Chewy, thanks, mate. It's been fun tonight.
No worries.
And thank you for everyone joining in. Thank you for the kind words. Cheers, 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 and twins. Okay, we'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you from 9. Hooroo.
Laters.